thank you very much for coming on. You probably have to just be a little bit closer there to the mic.
Yeah.
So we chatted a little bit off air about what we're going to do and the goal. Get a little bit of insight into who you are, what you do, and hopefully create some cool content. So just tell the massive audience at home, mate. It's a very, very big audience.
Is it?
You know, in the hundreds of thousands of millions. No, it's not.
That makes me even more comfortable than I was before for my first podcast.
Is this your first podcast?
First podcast, yeah.
You're starting at the top, mate. So, can only go down from here, hopefully up. But we say it's the fastest growing podcast in Surrey Hills.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's the biggest.
No doubt.
Yeah, but it's probably the only one that's going in Surrey Hills at the moment. So tell us a little bit.
Best.
Still the best, yeah. Try and mate, try and. Number 25 today, so giving it a good crack.
Awesome.
Hopefully we can only get better. So just tell us who you are and what do you do?
I'm Andy, Coach Andy.
Coach Andy.
I think we figured out earlier that I've been in the industry for 6 years now. So it's always the hardest question to answer, isn't it? Tell us about your story.
we got a while, mate. It's going to come out.
Yes, I mean, obviously, I've always been into training, all sports from a young age. I decided to go and study my bachelor's in exercise and sports science. When was that? Back in 2017.
And you did an internship at the Bulldogs, yeah?
I did, yeah. So that was right at the end. I finished my final semester and I was like, what now?
Yeah.
And I saw that there was an internship going at Manly, the Sea Eagles.
Yeah.
So for anybody that doesn't know, that's an NRL team, rugby league.
Probably one of the most hated NRL teams, yeah?
Manly?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But I've got to be careful what I say because you never know who's watching. I don't want to offend anyone.
No, offend the Manly fans, mate. You're gonna offend them.
I was actually at Brookvale a couple of weeks ago, believe it or not, watching a game there.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd end up there. But yeah, there I was.
Yeah, fair enough. Were you a Doggies fan or?
No, I wasn't. To finish off that story, what I was saying before, I ended up going with the Bulldogs internship, which was also up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Belmore at the time, so it made sense. It was like literally walking distance, Belmore Oval. The internship was in sports science. And yeah, so I was there for about 6 months. It was supposed to be for 12 months, but then lockdown hit, the first COVID.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you remember, they introduced the bubble. Inverted commas.
Yeah.
And so they more or less gave me an ultimatum. They were like, you can continue working with us, but that's all you can do.
Yeah.
You go home, you come to training at the training ground, and then when the season starts, you can come to games, and then you go home and that's it. You don't see anybody other than your family.
Yeah.
You've got to be testing however often it was. And then I was like, well, I mean, it's an internship. I wasn't making money from it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess that's that.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
So it was a shame. But also, it was really insightful because it was very different to what I expected.
Yeah, okay.
I think I was expecting to spend a lot more time in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting it to be a lot more hands-on. I think more down the S&C side of things, the strength and conditioning, rather than just data entry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Analysing GPS monitors, all the data that came from that, just looking at numbers, Excel spreadsheets. I was like, wow, if I'd known this is what it was going to be, then
Definitely.
might have taken the Manly option.
Yeah. And definitely not worth getting into the bubble and just doing data entry.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a great way to spend lockdown.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny because I think people think, even before when I first started at uni, we had a cohort of like 200.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the third, so it was a 3-year course, by the end of it, we had about 75.
Yeah, okay.
And I think, again, just that expectation versus reality, people come into it thinking, sweet, I'm going to work with Sydney FC, I'm going to work with the Roosters, with Melbourne Storm.
Mm.
And then when they realise that most of us will be working in hospitals, rehabilitating, people that have just come out of quadruple bypasses or, people suffering from diabetes or strokes, spinal cord injuries. That's where people are like, not what I thought.
Yeah.
When I read the brief for sports science.
Yeah, it makes sense because there's only about maybe 100 jobs in Australia for sports science in.
Yeah, they're hard to find.
Yeah. And it's very much like who you know as well too. Yeah. So if you're not in, you could go through such a long period of time of doing internships and not getting paid, and then you probably have to do PT on the side gig anyway, work your ass off to then still not end up getting a job.
Yeah,
as well
exactly.
too.
And it's anybody that works in elite sport will understand that it's a cutthroat industry. Like one bad season and heads are rolling.
Yeah, particularly with S&C coach as well too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's no job security. So yeah.
And particularly, I guess in the NRL, there's like a lot of old school mentality as well too. At least there would have been around then. Did you run 100%. Into that a little bit? Because I remember talking to you on Instagram, and you're saying, same sort of thing. Like you don't get to do a whole lot, and it's very hard to implement any sort of change because they've got their ways.
Yeah. So there were some dinosaurs working in the club
when
I was there. Guys that had been there, I'm talking since the 80s.
Yeah.
And so like they've obviously got a set way of doing things, and it might have worked for X amount of years, but the game's changing and people are changing. You've got to keep up. And if you look at the more successful clubs, I feel like they're investing a lot more into their sports science, their S&C. They're buying into these more, for lack of a better term, pseudo-scientific methods.
Yeah.
Whereas where I was, it was like almost like sports science was just a made-up job.
Yeah.
I literally one day I walked in and I was doing my data entry, extracting all the GPS data and putting it into spreadsheets so that we could put it into a graph to send to the head coach. And this guy walks past. I don't even know who he was. He walks past. I could just tell he'd been there like almost his whole life. He goes, sports science, a job that was made for people. Okay, well, how are you're not gonna get anywhere when the whole club has that mentality.
No, and we've seen in recent years, mate, they've not done too well. And I'm a Doggies fan, well, closet Doggies fan.
That's right, yeah.
So
why a closet?
Because they're shit.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair.
Well, they're doing a little bit better now, so maybe I might come out of the closet.
Yeah.
But I supported them. My old man was a Dogs fan. My brother was, so I was. And they used to be good. Although, have you heard the theory about they're in a grand final every 10 years and they win one every 20 years?
I've heard something.
So the last one they won was 2004.
Yeah, 2004.
And then
against, was it the Storm?
Who was it against? I don't know, but they had it was a dream team. They had Sonny Bill Williams, Willie Mason.
Jonathan it was against the Roosters. That
Roosters,
one. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And then they in one every 10 years. Yeah. So they win every 20, and because it goes back further than 2004, and then they're in every 20 years. Sorry, every 10 years. So the last one was 2014 against Rabbitohs.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
with Ben Barber.
Yeah. And Sam Burgess broke his jaw off the first kickoff. James Graham headbutted him, and then played the whole game. No, it wasn't his jaw; it was his cheekbone. Yeah. I
do remember that. Okay, so it's 2024 now. So.
Mate,
we'll see. Where are they at now on the ladder?
I think they're in the top 8.
Are they?
Yeah. So
if you're right, then that's going to be very strange.
I'm not banking on me being right. It was one of my mates that he played at Penrith, and he said something about have you heard of that theory? And I was like, absolutely not. And I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe they've changed their sports science, mate.
Yeah. Well, I know the guy that I was working under, I'm not going to name drop, but I know he's not there anymore. So who knows? Something's changed.
Yeah, fair. And so you did your sports science degree, which was really, really cool. How was that experience doing that at uni?
I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Lots and lots of content, lots of biochemistry, anatomy. Again, it was very different to what I expected it to be. I thought it would be a lot more hands-on, more biomechanics sort of work. We'd be in the gym a lot, working with sporting teams. And there was a little bit of that. There was biomechanics, but I think it was just the anatomy, the heavy focus on anatomy, the biochemistry, the psychology units of study as well, and sort of looking at determinants of exercise and behaviours that sort of steer people away from healthy lifestyle habits.
Yeah.
But eventually, like I said, I really grew a liking to it. I told you before that we started with a cohort of 200 people, and by the end we only had about 75. So I really enjoyed it. I think over 50% sort of took a bit of a shock, and then run for the hills, went elsewhere.
Yeah, that's fair. And so how did the transition happen to PT?
So after doing the internship with the Bulldogs, again, the expectation versus reality was just very, very different. I wasn't expecting all of the data entry, and then I always wanted to be working in the gym. I wanted to be on my feet, actually training people, getting more hands-on with things. And so, I was like, well, you know what, I'm just going to go and take everything I've learned from the past few years, even what I saw the other S&C coaches doing in the gym, and I'm just going to start using it with Gen Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I'm sure what you've learned at uni, like human anatomy is human anatomy. It doesn't matter if it's a professional football player or, a general pop person that wants to build a little bit of muscle mass. It's a big foot up because there's a lot of PTs that don't understand anatomy, which is kind of crazy. And obviously, there might be differences in speed of movement that someone playing in the NRL will be doing, but they're still going to be doing very similar movement patterns. They're not going to be, they don't make up movement patterns. And so if you can apply that logic to what you do with your clients in the gym as a personal trainer, you've got a leg up on what most people can do. Yeah. And so you said you've been doing it for 6-7 years now. So tell us what are the type of clients that you usually work with?
So I've worked with, in recent years, when I started, it was primarily Gen Pop. Mm-hmm. I think because I had that really short background in working with athletes and having the background in exercise and sports science, I wanted to sort of see if I could do my own thing in working with athletes. And that was a broad spectrum, not necessarily niching in any particular field. Obviously, I've got a background in boxing myself, so at the time, that's where my interests were. And I ended up helping, a few of the boys that I was training with their S&C programs, helping them with their weight cuts. Yeah. So I, got to experience that a little bit, which was really interesting. And I still do help a few fighters here and there, combat athletes. So I suppose if we're looking at a split, it would be, I'd say 70% Gen Pop at the moment. Primarily helping them with their body composition, fat loss and hypertrophy, just improving their overall health and well-being, and 30% athletes.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? When I started, because like a lot of people, if you're active as a kid, you play a lot of sports, you get into lifting weights, you see the benefit that it has on your sport, you want to then go and train a lot of athletes, and it just doesn't always end up that way, because getting a job in S&C at a professional club, really, really hard to do. And then most athletes that are going to be playing those sports at a young age, at the level that you want to be training people, they probably don't have that much money as well too, because they're young. Yep. And it's really, really hard to get into having a full book of clients that are athletes, even though it's really, really cool. So now you do mostly body composition and sort of hypertrophy. Tell us what that kind of looks like for you. What do you focus on with your clients? How do you get them results, and what the process is?
So we'll typically start with a period of recomposition. So we'll start with some fat loss. And then once we get down to a point where they're happy with their percentage of body fat, then we'll start slowly building back up. So usually I like the flexible diet approach. Mm-hmm. You might have seen some of my posts recently. And that's what I'm about. I do. It all just depends on who I'm working with. I do like to. Some people prefer the more rigid approach, so I'll tell them exactly what to eat: breakfast, lunch, dinner, their snacks, dessert, how much water to drink when they go to the bathroom. No, I'm joking. But
sometimes as a coach, you got to do that.
Yeah. What time on the dot should you be going to bed? But some people like working like that. Some people are literally robots. But I find that the flexible approach has been a little bit more effective. So I give what that looks like. The flexible approach is I give people their calorie and macronutrient targets, and then essentially improve their awareness around food. Just helping them understand what, say 500 calories looks like when it's on a plate in front of them. What 30 grams of protein looks like when it's in front of them. And then it does start with a little bit of tracking. I know that there's some controversy.
whichever way you want, mate. Whatever you say on this podcast, because it is a podcast, is gospel. It doesn't have to be backed by anything. It's just that's.
Which sounds cool. I'm going to go with controversy.
Controversy.
Yeah.
We'll get that one trending.
Yeah. So there's a lot of controversy around the whole idea of tracking.
Yeah.
You know, with MyFitnessPal or you know, fitness apps of the like. But I think that it's really useful, and this is talking from personal experience. Like I said, just improving, as we call it, your nutritional literacy.
Yeah.
So, you know, being able to eye off a plate of food and roughly guesstimate, you know, what the caloric value of that meal is.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people will say, "Oh, well, like, you know, tracking. Yeah, I understand it gets you from point A to point B, but I also feel like it creates a really negative relationship with food."
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, absolutely, and that, you know, there is research to prove that, because it's never one size fits all.
Yeah.
You know, one person is going to respond very differently to the next. But it's funny that these people are saying that they're hesitant to track their food when, well, I don't understand why they get so caught up with the negatives when there's so many benefits and positives that they could be getting from potentially tracking their food. Because half the people, when they do start tracking, they're like, wow, it's crazy. Like, I wasn't eating nowhere near that amount of calories.
Yeah.
And that's when they're in a 20% deficit.
Yeah.
So if you're barely hitting your calories that's set for a 20% deficit, then where were you?
Yeah. And like it's a really, really good point that you raised, or the way that you framed it was nutritional literacy, yeah?
Yeah.
In that if you were to weigh up the benefits of actually tracking, they're definitely going to outweigh the negatives of it. There absolutely can be negatives, and I've been there before where I got down to stupidly low amounts of food at stupidly low body weights because I was too focused on it because I didn't have anybody to guide me.
Yeah.
And I got, you know, like there was a point where I was eating like 1,300 calories a day at 20 years old as a nearly 6 foot tall male.
1,300?
Yeah.
What were you training for? The beach?
I was like, I couldn't get leaner. I couldn't see at the time. It was disordered eating, and body dysmorphia, but I couldn't see at the time. I got down to 65 kilos at the same height as I am now, at 83-ish. But that is a negative, yes. But also then if you flip it on, like what I try to explain to my clients and along the same lines as you just said, there's so many more benefits of it because it gives you so much more power, so much more knowledge, and then you have more power to look at a plate of food, not have to track it and know, cool, that's about that much. Yep. I know what 30 grams of protein is. I know what about a 500 calorie meal is. Yeah. And then that ultimately gives them so much more freedom, yeah?
Yeah.
Because like you said, like having a flexible approach, they can go out, have a meal, not have to track it.
Yeah.
And they can still get to their goals. And then also what you said as well, when people were like, oh shit, I didn't realize I wasn't, like, it's hard to eat this amount of calories when you're in a deficit. And it's one of those things that I understand why it's how did you say it?
Controversial.
Controversial. You just changed it.
Controversy.
Oh, well, I guess it's the two. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got the context wrong.
Yeah.
But I understand why it's controversial. But I think when people come at it from the light of it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Use it as a tool to educate yourself to get to where you want to go. So how do you set that up for clients when you're looking at that? You said you do calories and macros, but how do you sort of educate them on what they need to do?
So I justify the breakdown of the macronutrients. So typically I'll go with 2 times or 2 grams per kilo of body weight protein, muscle recovery, and for trying to build, maybe a little bit more if they want to build a little bit more aggressively. Just depending on their activity levels, will typically determine the carb intake. So like, if we're dealing with an athlete, then we're looking at up to 7 grams per kilo of body weight. But usually I'll find people at somewhere between 3 and 4 if they're sitting at a desk all day. And this is just based off a little calculator that I've got in my Google Sheets that I've been using, and I've found that it's pretty successful. And then we just aim for about, depending on the person and what their criteria are, 30 to 40% fat.
Yeah, and then you just let them fill their macros from there, or fill that with the foods they want.
Yeah, so I'll give them recommendations on, like, let's say someone's struggling, because I find that most people struggle to hit the protein. So, because for a lot of people, we're going from, let's say I've said they should be aiming for twice their body weight in protein. So somebody that weighs 75 kilos should be aiming for 150 grams of protein a day, which isn't 150 grams of steak.
No. Yeah.
Just for the record.
Yeah.
We're talking people that have gone from barely scratching 40 grams a day to now all of a sudden having to hit 150. So like, oh my God, that's so much protein. How am I supposed to hit that? So I'll just say, okay, well, you could have, say, this for breakfast, and then you could have this for lunch, and then you could have this for dinner, and that's going to help you get there. But that's by no means rigid. They can play around with that. That's just a guideline, a blueprint for them to follow.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like once you have that blueprint and the guidelines, like it doesn't need to be super, super strict and super, super rigid, because then you could go to the 7-Eleven and you can know how, oh, cool, this makes up 30 grams of protein.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you don't have that understanding of macros, energy balance and whatever it might be, then you would go to 7-Eleven and buy a Mars bar and a bag of chips or whatever it might be, which in that concept of being flexible is not bad. But if you know, if it's going to support your goals, are you going to massively overeat your calories or even undereat them, which is quite a common thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you raise about going to the 7-Eleven and grabbing a Mars bar. And I find that a lot of people, let's say us, okay, we need to focus on, because the first thing I'll do let's say I've got somebody that's really new to this whole idea of health and fitness, and somebody that's really fresh in their journey, rather than worrying about their carbs and fats, I'm going to say, okay, week 1, I just want you to try to stay within your calorie range, your calorie target, stay under your calorie target, and try to hit your protein. And we can start talking about carbs and fats down the track. So they've left the gym or left the Zoom consult, whatever, thinking, okay, I need to get more protein. Let's say they're strapped for time. They go into the 7-Eleven. What's the first thing they're going to go for? Something that's labeled with protein or high protein. So they go for their Quest protein bar, or those cookies that you can get that say 15 grams of protein per serve. But then you look at the caloric value of these foods, and it's like astronomical. Like these cookies are like 500 calories for 50. So what's the trade-off? So we got to be careful with that sort of thing. And I think, like I said, that's why I like to make those recommendations around, you want to be hitting your protein, but how to choose optimal sources. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, makes a big, big difference. And then in terms of when you're looking at training, what do you sort of focus on with your clients, and how do you get them in the shape that they want?
How do I get them in shape?
Or like, what's the training process look like for you?
In terms of programming, right? So, again, it just depends on their level of experience. But usually I'll start with a hypertrophy block. So a period of either building foundational strength or building muscle. Start with our compounds, accessories, isolations at the end. Again, depending on how many days people have available to train throughout the week, will determine the split or how I program for them. Sort of, I play around with the volume depending on their level of experience. So somebody that has been training, say, as long as you have, then I might get a little bit craftier with the volume. Can add things in like drop sets, sets to failure, giant sets, supersets, that sort of thing. But if somebody's really fresh, then we just sort of generally stick to the 3 or 4 by 10 for compounds, and then maybe bump that up to sets of 12 for accessories, max 15 for isolation. But
yeah, for sure. And then how many times a week would you kind of, obviously it's very vague, but like if someone's wanting to change their body composition and, you've set them up with a diet, how many times a week would you have them train, and what other things would you get them to focus on outside of training as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I usually get them to aim for at least 4 resistance-based workouts a week. I'm a big believer in prioritizing your resistance training over your endurance or cardio work. I think there's still that old school of thought where cardio is going to help people lose weight faster. And I was literally, just before I came in to see you today, I was having to explain this to one of my clients. They were like, hey, so like, I want to lose X amount of weight by this date. Should I start increasing how much cardio I'm doing? Here we go again. So, I was like, no, I want you to focus more on resistance training. And I understand, it's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, because how does that make sense? Especially when you have the idea that if I'm doing lots of weights, I'm going to be putting on weight, putting on size, getting muscly. How does that mean I'm going to lose weight? So just sort of, re-educating people around that. And back to the question, really putting an emphasis on my minimum four resistance workouts a week, or three full body resistance workouts a week. And then if people enjoy their HIIT training or their boxing, or, going for a run here and there, then by all means go for it. But if you don't enjoy running, then why would you force yourself to do it?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to help you get to your goal any faster.
No, and that's a massive thing, man, is if someone comes to exercise and they're doing it from a place of that they don't love it or don't enjoy it to a certain extent, you're not going to be successful with it. The reason why a lot of people that do get in good shape is, you can't come at it from a place of hate. If you hate your training, how are you going to be successful at doing it? If we hated our job, we wouldn't be successful at doing it. Yeah. There is obviously a period where someone goes into it and they are most likely if someone likes it or loves it, it's probably because they're reasonably good at it as well too. So it's like persisting through that period. If someone is new to the gym, to give it a chance and build up the habits and build up the routines. I've had clients come to me before and they say, I only want to do 2 or 3 sessions in the gym, don't really like the gym, rather play sports outside. Like, that's excellent if that's what you want to do. If you want to play footy or whatever it might be, and that keeps you in shape. But then it come from a place that they didn't really like the gym because they didn't really see the results they want. And then once they started to see the results they wanted, they started to like the gym a lot more, which then they go to the gym 5 times a week now. Not because I tell them they have to go to the gym 5 times a week, but because they like going to the gym 5 times a week and they see results. But enjoying what you do makes a massive, massive thing, massive, massive difference to the whole process.
100%. Yeah, I think that's key. You can't be forced. I'll have clients that they started on their journey, or, they might have even had a bit of a lull in their journey, and they're trying to, kickstart their journey and get back up to a point where they were previously, before they sort of, that initial excitement and motivation wears off. Because when the motivation wears off, what do you have? You're left with the discipline. Yeah. Which is what most people struggle with. Yeah. The discipline and consistency. Myself included sometimes.
I think it's normal. Like, how often do most people that get in decent shape and train quite a lot, you don't love every single session that you do.
Exactly. And that's a really important, it's funny you say that. I think that's something that's really important to remind ourselves, is that, you're going to have days where you feel like shit. I'm allowed to swear on
You can swear all that.
Awesome.
Just don't offend too many people.
Yeah, no. Just soft swearing, B-grade swearing. You're going to have days where you're feeling like shit and you're not going to want to be there. But, it's about pushing through. Obviously, mindset comes into it. Having that mentality, the delayed gratification is a huge part of it. Understanding that you're not going to see the results immediately after the session, and if you are, it's just a pump. Yeah.
And it's very depressing because you realize that you're never as big as your pump.
Exactly, man. I have this battle every day in the mirror. I go on.
It's the only reason we keep going back.
Bicep curls, and I look in the mirror and I just make the most of it.
Well, that's what you have to. But that's also why, we'll get to it later with the top exercises, but it's why you have to do exercises that you enjoy. And if doing exercises that give you a mad pump and you look good and feel good in the mirror, that is excellent. Like, that's a good exercise for someone to do. I had my mate Rob on yesterday, and he couldn't get to 10 because he's a bit weird. He did like 6 exercises, and bicep curls with the easy bar was in there. And his main reason is like, because I look sick in the mirror with a pump doing an easy bar bicep curl. Yeah. That's a good enough reason.
Right? Yeah, he feels good about himself. Yeah. And why, you can't argue with that.
No, it's a lot of what we do. It's like, there is aesthetics and vanity is a part of what we do in the gym. It's not the only thing, but there's going to be an associated confidence with when you get a pump and you look and feel good, and other people are like, oh fuck, sick pump, man, whatever it might be. Yeah. It makes you feel good. One other thing there is like having, persisting with it for a long enough period of time to get past the shitty period where, well, there's like a period when you start where you get good results fast because it's a new thing. Then it probably gets a little bit hard. The motivation wears off.
Yep.
But I think like one thing that people undervalue, or you see people that don't kind of get there, is oftentimes they're like, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And it's not yet part of their identity as well too. And I think that's a big thing when you start to see that shift in identity with a client of like, they're the person that goes to the gym 4 times a week. Yeah. So they can't not, you know. And that's where, you know, those shit times where everybody has a session or 2 or 3 sessions a week where you probably don't have the best session, and particularly as you get further on in it and you get more advanced with your training, they're good sessions, but it's not PB every session.
Yeah.
But you can't not train because then you wouldn't be being yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing for clients to get to, but it's like persisting with it long enough to get to that point where that's part of your identity.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they really quickly can fall out of that as well too.
Yeah.
Like everybody's seen it with a client where they're like, oh, I try to get to the gym, I'm busy, and then, you know, I can't do it. But if you can fall back to the habits and routines, behaviors, and the identity, then you won't. You might miss a session, but you probably won't miss 2.
Yeah, it's really interesting you bring up that whole notion of identity, because like if we look at, you know, your traditional 6, 8, 12 week fitness challenge, what do we see at the end of it? 90% of the time we see a rebound, adiposity rebound. So people, they get amazing results. They get a hectic before and after photo for the gram and they get shredded. But what happens is they put all that weight back on without the muscle that they've lost in the process. And I feel like the problem is that, they've done an amazing job in getting from where they started to where they finished. But the mindset hasn't changed. Or maybe it did for a really short period of time, but the identity hasn't changed. So let's say somebody's an emotional eater. Like anybody can change their habits for 6, 8 to 12 weeks. You know, especially if there's like a price tag at the end of it, which a lot of gyms do. You know, which I think is crazy, by the way. People saying, you know, hit your fitness goal, and you know, you could go into the draw for winning $5,000 in cash. It's just such a circus. Yeah, it's creating such a mockery of it.
And who are you doing that for?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it shows it's funny, isn't it? Because it shows people are capable of change.
Yeah.
Because if they can go through that process, but like you said, you know, anybody can do it for a short period of time. And I think like what you find with a lot of these challenges as well too, I see it as a sell. I understand why people do it, because it gets, you know, that there's like there is a predetermined time frame and there's something at the end of it, and people like to work towards something. But oftentimes they'll have like a super restrictive diet plan that doesn't actually, you know, like one of the things I try to focus on with my clients, and it's much the same as what you said before, is educate them on kind of like the basics of what nutrition actually is. Because once you understand calories, macros, energy balance, there's always going to be the same.
Yeah.
It's not going to change massively. And if you can have education around those things, then you have more power to change those things. You know, if a client is only with you for 10, 12 weeks or whatever it might be, the macros, calories, energy balance is still going to serve them after that as well too. I think it's a really important thing, like you said, having more of a flexible approach. Because you do the 12-week challenge and you eat 1,200 calories a day, but you don't actually know how many calories you eat in a day, because it's just this food plan that says can't eat X food, eat this food only in this quantity. You've manipulated your calories, but because you don't have any education around it,
there's no long-term habits being created there.
No. And it's more, having more knowledge around the whole thing makes it so much easier to replicate. Because that's what, as trainers, that's what we do. We try to educate ourselves on everything that we can to get them a better result. It's an interesting one to think of. There was something else I was going to ask you with that. I can't remember.
But just to piggyback off what you were saying, I think, obviously, I don't think the issue is running the challenges, because you and I, we've both run multiple challenges throughout our career. But I think it's how you conduct those challenges, and are you doing it for the right reasons? Like you said, you know, I feel like a lot of gyms, especially small sort of studio gyms, are going into it with they're not coming into it with they don't have the right interests in mind. They're doing it for the marketing from the marketing point of view. I lost my words there a bit, but you know, we're going to run a challenge. We'll get X amount of people on board, and then we're just going to starve them for 12 weeks and not actually teach them anything so that they can replicate it themselves or create any long-term change. You know, help them lose 10 kilos through starvation and, you know, help them get to this unrealistic percentage of body fat so that we get a hectic before and after photo. And then that's just going to spark interest and get way more through the door for the next one. So do you have the client's interests in mind there, or is it the businesses?
Just the business interests. It is one of those things, and I've just been thinking about it recently with, like, the transformation is cool as well. And I think if you go about it in an intelligent way and you have the client's best interest in mind, it's really, really cool getting someone to see the drastic change that they can make, and it is very empowering. And then, but just all the other things that go along with it, the things that get me like excited is when you see that change in a person, and you know, someone that hasn't had the change before, and then you've presented with this information, you've given them the education, helped them along the way, and you've started to see their habits and behaviors change, and they're doing it because they enjoy it. There's obviously hard work in the process. Nothing worthwhile is not. There's no hard. It won't come without hard work. But just seeing like the difference of how they carry themselves into the gym. You know, they go from being a beginner, not liking being in the gym, to then training at peak times, and they can hold their own with anybody else in the gym because you've educated them. And then how confident they are when they walk into the gym as well too, which is such a cool thing to see. But that only comes from like education, and as well as like, it's not just about the before and after photo. You know, there's so many things that you can help them, even just seeing someone train more confidently in the gym, execute exercises better. Like, it's a really, really cool part about the job, not just the before and after photo.
100%.
But the before and after photo does really good on Instagram.
It does. And like that, I always post before and after photos of my clients if it's done in the right way. You know? But again, it's just about, how did you get from point A to point B? And did it also come with all those additional wins that you just listed? You know, is the confidence there? You know, do they have improved nutritional literacy? You know, are they able to now go on program for themselves even? Yeah, for sure. But anyway, I could go on all day.
Mate, rants are welcome. There was another thing that I was going to say in that, and you know, what I was thinking about is like, those changes and the transformation doesn't always need to be just that. You know, the before and after photo as well too. Just seeing someone come into the gym, execute things better, be in less pain, even just stacking up more sessions in the gym. And this, I think this is the point that I was going to make, is that 12-week transformation takes a lot longer than 12 weeks. To be able to get to the point where you're ready to make that change it's a hard thing to...
it's kind of like that tip of the iceberg analogy, right? So like the 12-week challenge is the readiness. But what about all that pre-contemplation, everything that we don't see underneath the surface? And just that's part of the journey as well. Absolutely.
And I think it's one of those things that it can discourage people a little bit as well too, with, you know, like they do the 12 weeks of training and they haven't got that result. But it's very easy to just look at it as potentially like a negative thing. But like, look at all the things that you did get better at in that time. You're probably in a position where you're closer to having that result. Also, is that result what you want as well? Because for a lot of people, it's not necessarily that thing. To get those drastic results where, you know, you see 10, 12 kilos of difference in body weight and getting decently lean, doing it right, hard thing to do. You know, it's not there's a bit of sacrifice involved in it, but there are ways that you can do it a little bit better. On that, like, so what are, like, in terms of things you see in the fitness industry or things you see in the gym, what are some of the things you think are overrated when it comes to people getting in shape, and what are some of the things that you think are underrated?
Overrated. Before and after photos. No.
Before and after photos. Well, they kind of are a little bit.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're overrated. It's just that they are not the be all and end all, like you said, like we've just been discussing. I think, especially if you're jumping on somebody's page and the first thing you see is a whole heap of transformations, you're going to think this person that's the main takeaway if I work with them. That's what I'll be able to get out of working with Andy or Joe or whoever. But yeah, I think overrated. What's overrated? That's a tough one. Deadlifts?
I think they're overrated as well too.
Yeah.
No, I do like them. I just hurt my back on them pretty bad at a powerlifting comp last year. So
yeah, but that's
what's your thinking reasoning behind deadlifts being overrated?
I mean, I just find that don't get me wrong. I love deadlifts. I enjoy them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you, ego's a funny thing. It always gets in the way.
Yeah.
You know, like I got to remind myself that I'm not, you know, the athlete that I used to be.
Yeah.
And that I'm not going to be able to pull 200 kilos for reps anymore.
Yeah.
But
getting old and wise, mate. How old are you now?
28.
It's pretty old.
But yeah, physically, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, older than 21.
Yeah.
Where I was throwing around, like, you know, basically pulling 1 RMs every day in the gym.
Which
like,
is
no soreness the next day.
Is a noble quest, mate. Just doing that, just going in and just shifting tin.
Yeah.
Goes back to that.
How you learn.
Have you seen that video, the fuck around and find out?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
I have to have a look now.
I'll have to. It's so funny. There's like a scale of the more you fuck around, the more you find out.
Yeah.
And there's this guy explaining it, and it sounds like he's going to have this really complex like system and methodology, and he's like, here's his graph. If you just see, like, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
Yeah.
And that
just summarizes like the whole male psyche in one sentence. Like, learn from our mistakes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, not all the time, but a lot of the time. Yeah, especially if there's ego involved.
Yes. Competition. So deadlifts, you think they're a little bit overrated?
Deadlifts, they just fuck my back.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
No matter how much activation work I do on my hammies or how far back I'm sitting into my heels, how much I'm bracing, my back's just always fried.
Yeah,
after.
fair. Yeah.
But that might just be, you know, my anatomy.
Yeah, true. It is like, it's a good point to raise is like exercises and what good coaches do. Exercises should fit the client.
Yeah.
Not try to fit the client to the exercise.
Yeah.
You know, no one ever needs to do a deadlift. It's an excellent exercise, but if it just doesn't fit you, how many other exercises can you do that, you know, like high bar back squat's my favorite exercise, but doesn't fit a lot of people the way that it fits me. So I probably don't give it to a lot of people.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that, like, just to quickly finish off, like I was actually having this conversation with a mate of mine who I've actually been getting him to help me with some programming. He's got a bodybuilding background, and like my own goals at the moment are sort of centered around trying to build a bit more muscle. And, you know, I like learning from different people as well. And we were having this conversation this morning, and, you know, he was like, okay, so just on that note, you know, I'll put together your program. Anything you particularly don't want me to put in there, anything you do want me to put in there. You know, I love squats, I love bench press, you know, all the rest of it. But deadlifts, is like, is that something that we need to put in there? And he said exactly what you just said to me then. He goes, it's not about one size fits all.
Yeah.
You know, like deadlifts, I personally enjoy them, but, you know, for you, if you don't, then it doesn't make sense to put them in there.
Yeah.
Irrespective of the benefits that come with them.
Yeah. But so many other exercises you can do to...
Exactly, yeah.
What do you do in place? Do you do like an RDL, or do you do...
RDLs? Yeah, I love RDLs. I just love that eccentric motion.
Yeah.
Nice, and so I like to feel my hamstrings ripping apart.
Yeah, it's great. Great. I've actually ripped one of them apart. It's not that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll probably go a bit lighter next week then.
It was jumping into the splits. Bar doing that, mate. You should be sweet.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Nordics on the GHD.
Yep.
Yeah, they're probably underrated as well. They're a tough one though.
Yeah, they are very tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to do... Have you ever been able to do a Nordic off the GHD?
I've done Nordics just on like the ground, like
on the floor. Yeah, that's something I'd like to. I mean, I haven't tried it that much. I know for some reason it's a lot harder on the floor than it is on the GHD.
Yeah, just
why is that, do you reckon?
The leverage of the hump on it.
Yeah,
so as the knee dips down,
so you can almost push off it.
Yeah, you just get still really, really hard. I think it's an excellent exercise to be able to get more volume in the hamstring on that same movement, and plus you can get a bit more hip flexion at the bottom as well too if you go all the way down. So you can get hip flexion, then the hip extension, then the knee flexion. It's actually fucking ideal.
Yeah,
because you're
training.
training.
Call them like Harrop curls.
Yeah. But the leverage that you get off the little bit of the hump makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does.
The Nordic on the flat. I was actually talking about it this morning. The Nordic, I think, it's really, or Nordic and Nordic variations. I think because the Nordic we know is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
The day that I tore my hamstring, it's quite funny. It was a video shoot for the gym.
Yeah.
And it was like, do some of the cool stuff that you can do.
Yeah.
So I did some weightlifting, got a equal PB, clean and squat jerk, sick. And they're like, what else can you do? And I was like, I can squat, I can do like Nordic curls. And they're like, what do you mean? And so I like jumped under and I did like 10 and they're like, fuck, that's sick. And then they're like, what else can you do? I was like, I can do the splits as well. And then I kind of jumped into the splits and went,
Makes sense. Yeah. So I feel like maybe the splits was just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and jumping into it as well. I could do the splits, I couldn't jump into it. But that's that ego that you talk. Yeah, you fuck around and you find out.
As soon as the camera comes out as well, game over.
Everybody. What do you reckon? So you got Nordic curls on the GHD. What do you reckon else is underrated? Anything in there as well too? Like, is it any sort of topic? What do you reckon people sort of struggle with the most, or they focus too much on?
Underrated. Racking my brain. Probably recording your weights lifted in a session.
Yeah.
Which I find is something that I'm having to explain to a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
Especially when they start out.
Yeah.
Like my clients that have been with me long term, I know they're all over it, but a lot of them, I'll look through their workout history and it's just nothing. I'm like, oh, cool, you did 0 kilos on the deadlift yesterday, even though you said your hammies are fried.
Yeah.
Deadlift's probably not a good example, considering I've just been talking so much shit about them. It was just there because we've been talking about it so much. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's really important for progressive overload if you don't know what you lifted the week before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's wildly underrated. Tracking your progress.
Yeah. In all facets as well too. Managing, not always everything, because they'll get to a point where you probably don't need to track it as much, but like tracking your calories, tracking your weight, how's your stress, how's your sleep,
That's another one.
What's
tracking weight.
Yeah.
Wildly underrated.
Yeah, particularly with, that's another one as well that goes into the controversy is the tracking of weight and tracking of food.
Yeah.
But that's the game that we play when we're looking at manipulating body composition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a hard thing. I always explain to my clients, like, clients have emotions around those things. As a coach, we have emotions around wanting them to get the result, but we can objectively look at the data that is there and then make more informed decisions based off that data.
Yes.
It's the same thing with your data entry when you're at the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what you're doing. Yeah?
I love data. I'm such a nerd about it. I geek out. Like, I love looking at graphs and I love seeing all the little dots on the chart. Like, I was posting all my clients' success on my stories today.
Yeah.
So-and-so has come down this much in the last month, and people, like, they're probably looking at it like, man, I don't want to look at more graphs. Like, next. But like I said, I can't help it. I geek out over it so much. But yeah, I'm of the opinion the more data you have, then the more accurately we're going to be able to assess where you're at and what needs to be done.
Yeah.
If we don't have any data to work with, then it's just a guessing game.
What are we changing?
Yeah.
Why are we changing it as well too?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that's what we do as a coach. Yeah, you assess that data. Obviously, you assess how someone's feeling as well too. It's not just we're robots with it.
Yeah.
But you can then match that data up with it. Oh, you're feeling like this. Your data says that you're probably going to be feeling like that.
Yes.
That's the reason why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we need to add more calories? Do we need to add whatever it might be? And that's the thing. Like, having, like, as you don't need to track every single thing, but like the more you do track, the more you can start to make change. Yeah. And ultimately, like, as a coach, more times than not, people come to us because they have a problem and they want to see change. And we can only work on the information that we have.
Exactly. Yeah. It's hard to implement change based on, the unknown. I mean, that's something I've started recently, only implementing into my check-ins with my online, all of my clients. It's the same system, whether they're face-to-face online. Is this year I introduced some questions where I get them to scale, like, some wellness parameters, like on a scale, so a Likert scale, 1 to 10. So it's like asking them to rate their stress levels on a scale of 1 to 10, their quality of sleep, their hunger, their digestion, their energy, those sorts of questions. And, a lot of them, they struggle to buy into it. They're sort of wondering, why do I need to answer this every week? Which I understand. But, if you're telling me that let's say you come back to me at the end of the week and you say, I had a really poor week of training. Like I wasn't able to progress on any of the weight. I haven't dropped any weight, or I haven't been able to build any, put on any size. I feel like shit. I'm sick. Okay, let me go have a look at your wellness score from last week. So on a scale of 1 to 10, your quality of sleep was 3.
Yep.
And your energy levels were 4 out of 10, which is probably already a pretty good indicator that maybe you should have had a deload last week.
Yeah.
Or maybe your expectations of yourself were just a little bit too high.
Yeah.
Your stress is 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that, you lost your job.
Yeah.
So maybe we shouldn't have been in the gym trying to hit PBs.
Yeah. Or I wouldn't have sent you that message saying go to the gym or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I wouldn't have been up your ass,
Which then is another.
What do you mean you feel like shit?
Another stressor for that client as well.
Yeah.
That's probably one that's like underrated or overlooked, is the effect stress has on everything in the body. It's a common theme, like stress and sleep are two of the big things. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you lost your job, you're probably not going to, sometimes you might have a good session, but it's probably going to be another stressor that you don't need. Or go to the gym and, recorrect whatever you're going to do instead of going and trying to hit a big deadlift.
Yeah.
Go train arms and get a pump and feel good about yourself, because you probably need it at that point. There's so many things that I think people often overlook. And again, that's what we do as a coach. Yeah. We provide that insight.
I think the other thing that people fail to realize or maybe overlook is that stress is physical. It's a hormone, cortisol, stress hormone. It manifests in the body, and if it accumulates, then the consequences can be pretty dire.
Yeah.
And your body is not able to distinguish between stress or cortisol that's accumulated as a result of physical triggers or emotional triggers. So if you're going through it mentally or emotionally, whether it's a breakup, whether it's you've just lost your job, whatever it may be, financial hardship.
Rent increase in Sydney.
It's just Sydney.
Yeah.
Stop.
Being in Sydney is a stressor.
Yeah. And you're then going into the gym and smashing yourself, then how do you think you're going to be feeling it? You've just raised those cortisol levels twofold down.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I perceive to be holistic well-being.
Yeah.
Tuning into your body and being aware of these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Rather than this ambiguous sort of term of wellness, which gets thrown around. But what does that actually mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And that because a lot of the that feeling of, wellness is it's being healthy, it's being in good shape, it's probably having good energy, it's probably managing your stress, it's, probably not accumulating large amounts of body fat, because that's, we chatted off air as well too. If that is a thing, you're probably not going to be in the best state of health, and that's what wellness is. Yeah, it's interchangeable with health.
I feel like it's just an adjective for state of well-being.
Yeah. And but how do you manage that whole thing if you don't have any data or insights or measurements of some way? How are you being successful? Yeah. You can definitely get super, super caught up in it. But one of the things that I try to educate my clients on is it just gives us insights to allow us to make that change. And it's only for a period of time until we don't need to do it as well. Because if someone, let's say if the 12-week thing we were talking about before, but if someone was to go through a challenge and they do it correctly, and they're tuning into how their stress was, how their sleep was, how their energy was, what their calories are, and what the result of what your strength is what's your sex drive all those things across that period of time. If you do that for an extended period of time, let's say 12 weeks, and you do it in a way that you're using it to educate yourself on the things that actually matter, you would probably then have some good habits and behaviors after that period of time, which you might be able to then replicate for another 3 months, and let's say another 3 months, and then a year's time, you've got a year's worth of these good habits that you probably don't actually need to track anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's cool. It's an interesting one that people still have a bit of hesitancy,
skepticism.
Yeah, because now everybody has a Fitbit. or a Whoop that
don't get me started.
tracks data. What do you got on that?
Overrated.
Yeah, I think they're overrated as well too.
Yeah. Look, it just depends what the purpose is and why you're using it, right? So I see so many people freaking out. I used a Whoop, when I was competing in boxing a few years ago, to track my recovery, because I think I can't even remember, but that was one of the parameters that it measures is your recovery. But I don't even remember what the units were.
It's like they record your strain, from a session, and I think something like that. They use HRV a bit as well,
okay, cool.
But I don't know. I have the most basic version of a Fitbit, so it tracks.
I don't want to talk too much shit because I haven't done as much research as I probably should have.
It's the best place to talk shit from, mate.
Just come out with the opinions.
Fuck around and find out.
Exactly. Let's see how much backlash I get on social media. That'll tell you.
It gets the algorithm going, mate. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Exactly.
But sorry, continue what you were going to say.
Controversy, word of the day. But no, look, I'm sure that if like you said, it's attributed to HRV, then I'm sure there's some sort of formula that some sports scientist has put together, and there is some validity to it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I didn't like about it was, sorry, I don't know if I was talking close enough. The only thing I didn't like about it was, I don't know if the Whoop is equipped for monitoring an athlete's recovery.
Yeah.
Because I was thrashing myself like 2 to 3 sessions a day. And then obviously, working, sessions.
Yeah, which again is all stressors as well too.
Exactly. Yeah. So my cortisol levels would have been tenfold.
Yeah.
CNS, my central nervous system, was just cooked. And it was telling me that I was only getting like 20% recovery.
Yeah.
And, really low amounts of deep sleep. And all I found was that it just stressed me out more.
Yeah.
What I think would be really useful is if people are taking this information, which is what I should have done, and looked into, okay, why is my recovery so low, or why is my quality of sleep so low?
Yeah.
And what can I do to improve that?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's where a coach comes into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Managing the data and responding to it appropriately.
Yeah.
But if all you've got to work with is the data and you're not sure why it's saying what it's saying, and you're not going to make any adjustments or changes based on the data, then what's the point?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just information that's useless. It can create more stress as well too. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I think it's good as well because it kind of gamifies it a little bit for people. But it was interesting. So I got this Fitbit because I just wanted to not have my phone in my hand when I was coaching. No, I always put my phone down when I'm actually watching someone while I'm coaching because it's annoying just having my phone.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to look at the time and not have any notifications.
Yeah.
And so it literally says the time on it and it tracks my steps. And when I got it, it was interesting because it does track sleep, although it's probably not the most accurate because it's just a low-level Fitbit. And it was actually interesting to see the first couple of nights, I was like, oh, my sleep was that. And then I was like, after a while, I just don't care what it says because you'll know, I guess it comes down to if you've been doing it long enough, you know what a good night's sleep will feel like.
Yes.
But you can only get there after actually being conscious about it as well too.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's the reason why you do that all with your clients as well too. It's the same reason I do it. It just allows people to actually get insights into what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And have all the measures are subjective as well too.
Yep.
But at least it's a little bit more objective than no data whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the main reasons as to why I get my clients to answer those questions in their check-ins is sometimes they don't even do anything with the data.
Yeah.
It's just that they're bringing their attention to it and becoming more aware of how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, especially in Sydney, right? Like, people get so caught up in the rat race and they're so busy and they've got so much they're having to deal with, whether it's kids or their work or whatever, just like trying to get by, trying to make ends meet. I feel like, and myself included, it can be really easy to forget to just slow down, check in with yourself, ask yourself how you're feeling. Are you stressed? Are you anxious? Are you grateful for anything? Are you feeling really angry or upset about something? I think it's just about becoming more intuitive and slowing down, taking a breather.
Yeah. Having to think of what's going on as well too.
Yeah.
Why did that happen? Why did I feel like I was feeling? Why is my training out the window a little bit at the moment?
Yeah.
I do it like on a weekly basis or a daily basis. Like I'll do a journal where I just like, how was yesterday? And like just actually think of like, oh, actually yesterday it was a decent day, but I may have not felt like it was a decent day. Why did I feel like that? And it's just asking those questions so you make yourself more aware, because that allows you to make the change moving forward.
Yeah.
Like going around in circles doing the same thing over and over again and not being aware of it.
Yeah.
There's actually an interesting book. Have you heard of the book called Coaching for Performance?
No, I haven't actually.
Really, really good book. It's coaching for performance in a business perspective, or a business setting. But two of the key concepts, it was a really, really good one for working with clients and my consult. And it's just a lot about asking questions. So it uses coaching as versus mentoring as interjecting information into the conversation, and coaching is pulling information out of it, which is what we do when we try to get those measurements for data and, how was your stress, how was your week, whatever it might be. And two of the key concepts is raising awareness and then raising responsibility, because we can't take responsibility for what we're not aware of. It's hard to take responsibility for how many calories you're eating if you don't know how many calories you are actually eating. And you've said it a few times, it like makes people aware of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And because making change, you have to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
So that ultimately you can take responsibility.
Yep.
To make that change. And like, that's what I try to do with my clients, is like make someone aware, educate them on why this might be happening, educate them what they can do moving forward collaboratively.
Yep.
And then they've got the responsibility to change it. Yep. If they go off and they don't change it, they at least know that then that responsibility is on them, and I'm always there to help them work through it. But often, we can't make change with the things we're not aware of.
100%. Yeah. That's that sort of linear progression of change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And working towards whatever your goal is. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that sort of, like, it almost sounds like a sort of schema. Like, I think they work really well, those, when you put it like that.
Yeah, okay.
Like, step 1, become aware.
Yeah.
Step 2, or, even like have you heard of the exercise readiness? What's it called? I'm really testing my my memory here. I'm going back to uni. But it was like I have to find the source, but it was like an exercise readiness kind of cycle, and it would start with, like not ready at all,
mm-hmm.
and then this is probably inaccurate, but I'm doing my best to jog my memory.
Again, it's gospel. It's on the podcast, man.
What I was saying before, like that sort of pre-contemplation.
Yep.
And then we go into contemplation,
mm-hmm.
and then what comes after that?
So
I think preparation.
Yeah. Self-determination theory, isn't it?
Yeah, and then action.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was called, but I feel like, I mean, I personally, I like those. Maybe that's just how my brain works. Like, I like to sort of have that visual.
Yeah.
And, when I'm looking at a client, or let's say I'm in a consult with a potential client, I'm thinking, okay, you're either here on that spectrum, or maybe you're back here, maybe you're back in pre-contemplation, or you're in preparation, just the fact that you're here.
Mm.
So,
and having a way to identify those makes a big difference, because it makes a huge difference to how you would then coach someone as well too.
Yeah.
Because, we talked about the challenges before. They might be in the pre-contemplation stage, where they kind of rock up at the gym and then they like sign up for this thing and then they go through with it, but they're probably not in the stage to actually like implement the things they need to do it long term.
Yes.
And they're usually the ones that then start back at that cycle of we put on a heap of weight. And I guess like the thing we want is to ultimately make people change. We help people change their life for the better and the long term, because health and fitness it's a long game.
Yeah.
It should.
It should be, eternal, right?
Well, that's the thing, because why would you do it for a period of time to then stop to go feel bad again?
Yeah.
And that's what we want to help change. Let's go on to the top 10, mate, and see how we go with that. Top 10 exercises for you and why.
Top 10 exercises.
Doesn't have to be for clients, it can be, but just whatever you find the most enjoyable with your training and why you do that.
I reckon number 1 would probably be sprints.
Sprints, cool. Nice. Yeah.
Like running sprints.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
in case people get confused. Like, no, I don't mean assault bike sprints. I mean actual running.
No one likes assault bike sprints.
I don't mind them. Yeah. Maybe that's number 3 on my list. Nah.
Yeah, okay.
I like sprints because I just love anaerobic training. Mm-hmm. Always have. I've always been a sprinter since I was like 7 years old. Love sprinting over long distance. I think they're an awesome exercise because there's the cardiovascular benefit, but in that HIIT style of training rather than the endurance, which I think can be a lot more enjoyable for people. So for myself included and my clients, the only setback with the sprints is like they're pretty hard on the body.
Yeah.
If you've got lower back pain or your running economy isn't, as, where it could be, then it might not be as enjoyable for you.
Yeah. But it's one of those things as a human being, like from a functional standpoint, like we should be able to do.
Just so primal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one thing I didn't do. I did for a long period of time while I was playing rugby and things like that. And then even after, but then just as I started to change my training, I kind of stopped running as much, but I've just implemented it weekly for the last nearly 2 months now.
Yeah.
You just feel so much better when you can run.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Because it's just shit if you can't run.
Yeah.
And I think if you have the ability,
feel alive, eh?
Yeah, if you have the ability to be able to run, you probably should run a little bit.
Yeah.
And like you said, sprints is a little bit easier in terms of it's obviously the demand on the body while sprinting is high, but a shorter duration is easier buy-in than a longer duration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're doing sprints, what would a typical workout look like for you? How would you program that?
So one of my go-tos is I'll do this either on a field or often I'll do it on the skill mill in the gym.
Yeah.
So I'll either measure it via distance or time. Mm-hmm. So I like to play around with both. So like let's say I'm going to start with 200-meter sprints. I might do 5 200-meter sprints with a 90-second break. Mm-hmm. Give myself heaps of rest so that I can make sure I'm sweet to go again. And then like I'll time myself or basically just the inverse of that. So I'll give myself, say, a 20-second sprint and then I'll see how much distance I can cover. And so I'll do 5 of those. I'll take like a 5-minute break. I'll come back and then I'll do the same thing, but half the distance or the time. Mm-hmm. So 100 meters or 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And you're cooked by the end of it.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about it. Also, I really like that lowering the distance as you go as well. Yeah. So much easier psychologically to lower the distance as opposed to increase the distance.
Yeah.
And also from like an actual training standpoint, you'll put higher effort in at the start, get the most out of it. You're going to be able to put less effort in as you go. So lower the barrier to entry.
You must have done something similar when you were playing footy, like with your conditioning, especially pre-season, the worst period for any footy player.
Yes.
You start with like, I don't know, your 3 by 300s and then 3 by 200s and then 5 100s. You do that sort of stuff at the beginning and the end of the session.
Yeah.
So that's like your warm-up and then you're going and doing all your skill work and then, little games and then come back and you got to do that again.
Yeah. How good's just the old school? I appreciate just the old school hard work for what it is of just doing stuff that's hard. Like it's not bad, but you probably could, as you do more education, you realize, okay, there's probably better ways that we can do these sprints, but also just the value of it. It's just hard. Yeah. That's the reason why we do it. We used to do, pre-season was always like in summer here, because it's Australia, and out where I'm from, middle of nowhere, it gets like 40 degrees every day for weeks on end, and we'd start in January, and there was the only hill, I really like hill sprints, it was the only hill pretty much in our town was like the boat ramp down near the river. So we just do, on one side it was like a bit of a loop, so you'd go down, the boat ramp was at the bottom, and then you drive up the other side. That was like notoriously the pre-season training. Run down one side, up the other, run back around, and you do like 5 laps that way and then 5 laps the other way.
But I like that, honestly. Like there's just something that's just so like this rawness to that style of training. Like using whatever resources you have, because So where was it that you grew up?
Grew up out near Dubbo. So
Dubbo, right, yeah. So obviously you like the access to facilities is going to be somewhat limited.
Yeah. My first sled that I had was a wheelbarrow. The top of a wheelbarrow that just threw rocks in, and I'd push that up and down the...
Yeah, see, I love that. Yeah. That's one of the things I loved about lockdown was getting creative with your equipment.
Yeah. So we got sprinting. What else we got?
Sprints. Number 2, you'll probably agree with me on this, squats.
Oh, mate, the best exercise. It should be always number 1, but number 2 is good. Squats.
Number 3, probably, it's going to sound silly me saying this because I haven't done them in so long, but a barbell clean.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Just a power clean.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a full clean. I do like full cleans as well. Especially if you're working as a PT, like if you can't clean the bar off the floor, in the middle of a session.
Talking about functional.
Yeah, exactly. It's just such a practical movement.
Yeah. The amount of times I've done it too heavy and just like really hurt my elbow. Yeah, I can do 90 kilos with no warm. Oh, that's really why I have elbow pain. Yeah, that's a good one. Very, very functional one.
Or when you're trying to show off to your client as well. And it just goes south.
Yeah, ego, mate.
Yeah.
Fuck around and find out. That's the theme of the show.
Yeah.
And the male ethos. So we got
sprints, squats,
cleans,
barbell, power clean. I've got 7 to go. Pull up.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, pull up.
Do you prefer pull up? Do you mean both supinated, pronated, or do you mean just
I just
pronated?
like neutral.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's my favorite. That's where I feel the strongest.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's where I get the most lat activation.
Yeah.
I don't mind pronated. I'm not the biggest fan of supinated.
Yeah, why's that?
I think I just when I'm doing my pull-ups, it's good if I feel like if I'm trying to target my biceps, then I'll go for the supinated grip.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to really feel it in my lats.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, again, my ego gets in the way, so I'll do weighted pull-ups.
It doesn't get in the way, mate. It's getting you success.
Yeah, it's pulling me through.
If you're getting bigger lats from using your ego, mate, that's perfect.
Yeah, the funny thing is no matter how much weight I add, they don't grow. But yeah, that's another topic for another day.
Just that, the eternal disappointment of when you start lifting weights and you're just like, I'm never going to be good enough.
Again, the expectation versus reality. Yeah. It's just a pump.
Yes, it is. You've done pretty good, mate, not considering, since like I said to you, I remember when you first started training at Fitness Playground.
Yeah.
And you've put in a considerable amount of muscle mass in the last few years.
Person.
How much weight have you put on or
back then, I was about 67 kilos, and I'm about 79 now.
Fuck.
Yeah.
And you sit pretty lean, yeah?
Relatively lean at the moment.
Yeah.
So still a bit to go, but yeah, back then, I was a shadow of the person I am now.
Yeah. Mate, that's a huge amount of muscle mass. So I think you've grown some lats in that time. So the pull-ups are serving you well.
Yeah.
It's just that you just never can appreciate that they've grown enough.
Yeah. See, there you go. So that's why it's important to look back at where you've come from rather than always looking forward.
Absolutely. So we got pull-ups in there. What else we got?
It's tough. It's a lot harder than you think.
Hey? You think it'd be easy as a PT.
Starting to put pressure on myself.
There should be pressure, mate. So only 10 exercises you can do. Well, I got this from you would have seen the Chris Williamson podcast, Modern Wisdom.
I haven't seen
It's not as big as this podcast, so it doesn't matter. He does. Have you seen the Diary of a CEO? Stephen, I think he's on Instagram.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Just interviews a heap of different people, but Chris Williamson anyway, it's kind of like the similar sort of podcast, and he does like, if you could only do 10 exercises for the rest of your life, what would they be and why? Yeah. It's kind of a cool way to put it.
Yeah.
So you've got 4.
I got 4. All right, 10. Okay, if you put it like that, 10 exercises. Do they have to be in order?
No.
Like, as in... Okay.
Doesn't have to be.
That's why I'm stressing over it.
Yeah.
All right, this is just my...
Doesn't need to be any more stress, mate. We live in Sydney. It's stressful enough.
We've already spoken about cortisol.
Yeah. We don't need to have more. It's meant to be a fun conversation.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll probably put a muscle up in there just because I really enjoy them. Again, like, obviously it's not something that, a lot of people are able to do.
Yeah.
And for me, it just depends on the day as well.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy them, and they're just such a powerful movement.
Yeah.
Like when you're able to get over the bar.
Yeah.
You feel invincible.
Yeah. And like you said, you like that anaerobic style training. That's a very good expression of that for the upper body, which oftentimes people don't think about as well. When you're looking at energy systems, people usually think like sprinting and jumping. That's kind of what it is, but that's what it is for the upper body. Yeah.
Yeah.
And particularly for pulling power. Most people don't think pulling power as well.
Yeah. 100%.
Very functional, which is important.
Yeah. Yeah, I had my moment where I was sort of playing around with the calisthenics a few years ago. You know, I really got into my ring work.
Yeah. Lockdown spur that on, or?
No, this was before lockdown.
Yeah.
I think I just, I had just seen other people, you know, doing pretty cool things with the rings and, you know, in parks at workout stations or even in the gym. I was just like, man, like, I want to be able to do that.
Mm.
So, yeah, ring muscle up, that was another favorite of mine.
Yeah. Does that go in the top 10? Or that can be lumped in?
Yeah, we'll tie that in with the barbell muscle ups.
Yeah.
What else? Nordics, we spoke about Nordics earlier. I have to put those in there.
Yeah.
You might be surprised at this one, but a plate sit-up. There's something about it I just love. And I'm talking like arms locked in extension.
Yeah.
You start over your chest, and we're not really flexing through the abdominal region. We're just finishing straight overhead.
Yeah,
I just get such a nice stretch through the abs.
Yeah.
Ab rollouts.
Yeah. Before you carry on, I love ab rollout as well. Yeah. Sit-ups got a bad rap there for a long time. You weren't allowed to do them.
Yeah, they did.
You weren't allowed to do them. But they're a great exercise.
It just depends on who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was like a period with core training, it had to be only isometric.
Yeah.
And you weren't allowed to... Only isometric and only rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No lumbar flexion.
No. But the ability to do so is pretty important as a human being.
But it's funny looking at that now. So when was that? That was a few years ago from memory.
Probably like around 5-ish years ago, let's say.
Like no Russian twists, no this, no that. Everything like, you know, the only planes of motion that we move in are, you know, forwards, backwards, up, down.
But before that, they were sick. Everybody would do Russian twists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then if you look at the trends now, because as we've already established, the fitness industry is all about trends.
Yeah.
There's heaps of gurus coming out with their mobility training, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that like we definitely need. But we've gone from no sit-ups to now loaded J curls.
Yeah, yeah.
What else? Some of the things that are toes to bar.
Yeah.
It's because like what? CrossFit when was that peaking? A few years ago?
Yeah, it would have been like the back end of it would have been mid 2010s-ish that it started.
So this is around about the same time that people were saying no sit-ups?
Yeah.
A toes to bar, not just a variation of a sit-up?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's flexion of the spine at a point.
Yeah.
Just going in the opposite direction. But then, you know, that was deemed functional, but a sit-up was not deemed functional. When you actually think about it, getting up off the ground, sitting up off the ground, it's pretty functional.
But like people don't understand that we're doing a sit-up first. That's literally the first thing we do in the morning when you fucking get out of bed.
Yeah.
But no, the way to get out of bed is to roll.
Yeah, no rotation through the spine. It is a good little thing that those things are starting to, because I think if you understand, you know, it goes back to kind of where we started at with your background and how you got into doing PT. You get a good understanding of sports science and exercise physiology and anatomy, and then you can start to like critically think and look at an exercise and be like, okay, there are definitely some stupid exercises.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you're like segmenting a movement to train a muscle, and you're actually using its functional anatomy to do that, that's a really, like, I think that's intelligent coaching, yeah.
Right. Well, I think, it's just making informed decisions. That's where it can be really useful to have some sort of a background in anatomy or some foundational knowledge, right? Because, I mean, like, I might offend some people here, but, like, if you don't have those foundations in anatomy, then, man, like, why are you a coach? Like, how can you be prescribing exercises for your clients if you don't even know what they do?
Yeah. Or how it's doing that, and you know why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why have you done 5 exercises that train the same body part for 3 or 4 sets each and within a workout?
Yeah,
when
exactly.
You could have done 2 and moved on to something else.
Why are you supersetting back squats with bicep curls? But anyway.
So we got ab rollouts before we cut you off there, and you offended everybody.
Yeah, standard. That was number 6.
Yep.
Assault bike sprints.
Nice.
I really enjoy them.
Yeah.
Again, like obviously power training is one of my favorite modes of training. I just love the feeling of arms and legs together. I really enjoy full body movements.
Yeah. It's hard training, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard, effective training for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. The output is just, it's up there.
The air bike is actually like one of the more friendly exercises for everybody. So anybody can get on an air bike for the most part and put in the effort that they can put in. You know, if you're an advanced trainer, you can do some stupid speed on there and really train power. But you also, it's one of the first exercises I get people to warm up on, because like as a client starting out, cool, we're going to do 5 minutes on this, going to get the hips, knees and ankles moving. It's really, really low level, can be super, super high level, but it doesn't have to be that. It's such a good exercise.
Yeah. It's just like a modified cross trainer, really.
Yeah.
Do it like that. Yeah. I like that it's non-weight bearing as well.
Yeah. And can be just an absolute death machine if you wanted to. I've had some bad times getting off an assault bike.
Yeah.
We used to do a challenge at the gym, and it was like 5 minutes, 4 people, as many calories as you could get, and we would compete against the other gyms to get the most amount of calories. So ego and fucking around and finding out. The first time we did it, we beat the bunker by 1 calorie.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so which was great. But
There's a big rivalry there.
Yeah. And we beat them every time. And I think the last time we did it, we beat them by about 30 or some calories. So we smoked them. But I think we just did all out sprints for as long as you could handle. So for most people, it's somewhere between like 20 to 30 seconds first one before you start to slow. Second time round, it's like 15 seconds just because you got lactate leaking out your eyes and you can't see properly. And then I had to go to the third one.
Like my quads are hurting. Like they're burning.
It gets you uneasy, And the third time I finished it off and we had 16 calories to get with like 20 seconds or something like that. And I didn't know that. I just went all out. The mistake I made, and I don't make this mistake anymore, was I just fell off it because I was fucked and laid down on the ground. And then I could not get up.
Oh, yeah,
I just couldn't move.
A rookie error.
Rookie error. Yeah, so now if I do that, I just try to get back on another bike and just move somewhat, because after sprints like that on a bike, all out, not a good time to stay down the ground because you're not getting off the ground.
Yeah. Do you know why that is?
In terms of...
As in why your legs just locked up like that when you jumped off?
With the fatigue in the legs, or you're going to tell me?
No, I was just wondering if you were you feeling faint, or like I was genuinely asking.
Oh right, yeah.
It's not like I was trying to like mansplain you or anything. It's just the tone of voice got you there.
Yeah. Well, like mate, sports science is a thing. I think just the amount of lactate built up, like, and it just 3 all out effort sprints. Yeah. Like absolute maximum. I'd also I think the day before my missus broke up with, so if we put stress into this.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. It was an emotional response.
Yeah, it's an emotional response. And so it was like 5 years ago or whatever. So young, I was upset about that. I was like, I'm going to put all the effort into this. So I tried really, really hard. And then, so that's left me in not a great state. And then I think the way that I think about it as well too, is like
trauma was just coming out of your quads.
And also like of exercises that I can exert a lot of force on a conditioning exercise. I can get a good bit out of the assault bike because I squatted quite a bit. So just in terms of, I pushed way further than what my abilities were to recover from. And then I was just absolutely fucked.
I always tell, like I had some clients I was doing a little group session today, and I had them on the skill mill and I was getting them to do some sprints, following a similar routine to what I explained earlier. Excuse me. And so I got them doing their sprints. They're going full pace for 20 seconds, and then they all just suddenly stop. And I was like, no, don't do that. Keep moving. And like, and they kept walking. I was like, active recovery, walk. One of them was like, no, I can't. And next thing, he's like dizzy, double vision. He's stumbling all over the place. I was like, man, I told you, like, your blood pressure's up here, and then all of a sudden you just stop and you don't do anything. And then where do you think it's going to go? It's just going to come straight back down.
Yeah. And then also just like the fatigue substrates in the muscle just cannot go anywhere. They just will pull and sit there. And
then you're that's probably why you couldn't move your legs.
Yeah. And I just learned, it's funny because like rookie area in that instance, but I've done it so many times before, like team training, whatever it might be, playing rugby. Don't stop. Don't like, and it was probably more of a mental thing I would think about it like when you're playing, if you're fucked, don't show the other team that you're fucked because then they're going to run at you. And then, so just keep moving around. And I just, in that instance was like, I am absolutely spent. And then, so my legs just locked up because there's no movement. Yeah. And like you said, the blood pressure and stress and because your body doesn't know that you're in a competition. It's just like, got to get away from whatever is trying to chase us or there's stress, there's some, fatigue, have that. Yeah, it wasn't a fun time. No, but I do like, that said, I do like an assault back sprint as well too. Yeah. So I think how many exercises were there? 7? We might get through the 10.
7. I have to put like hammer curls in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the pump.
Very important.
For the boys.
8, 2 more, mate.
2 more.
You can do it.
I don't want to waste my two choices.
They come up fast. You think it's?
I don't want to be driving home and then think, oh, "Fuck, why did I say that? That's a shit exercise."
You can have another shot at coming back, mate. But you can only do the 10 one time. So,
we'll go with a burpee.
Oh yeah, yes.
I like burpees.
Yeah. They got a bad rap there for a while as well too.
Yeah, I think they still do. I don't think anybody likes burpees.
No, I don't think. Yeah, but like, it's probably an underrated list, mate, of exercises. Like,
you're getting a push up. You're getting like a squat jump.
Yeah.
Anything else? No, that's about it.
Yeah. And then just getting up off the floor.
Yeah.
There's probably a metaphor for life in there at some point.
Yeah, an emotional response. There's probably some wellness in there.
Mate, if I had done my burpees, I would have just bounced straight off the floor after that bike and been sweet. But I hadn't been doing any burpees.
Yeah. I don't know.
Burpee, what else?
Maybe a staggered burpee.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been very, very powerful. What else have we got there? So we got one more, I think.
Last one, I'm going to say push up.
Nice. Yeah. Push up and pull up are like staple exercises.
Yeah. All right, so what do you think about, what would you have to say? Let's say I came in today and I'm sitting in front of you, and let's say I couldn't bench press my body weight.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, no, let me rephrase. I'm bench pressing 2 to 3 times a week, but I can't do 10 push-ups on my toes.
Mm-hmm.
What would your advice be to me?
I'd ask you what your goals are, but in terms of I guess kind of like from like a purist standpoint, like I think the push up is one of those exercises that, like sprinting, like doing pull ups, like doing sit ups, like they're kind of staple exercises that they're not going to go away. I don't think, like those exercises, I think from just the pure simplicity of it and the ability to be able to do those exercises, we probably should be able to do those exercises. But then it's like, it probably identifies missing links in your training as well too. So if someone comes in and presents like that, like, you've probably, from like a stability standpoint, I always try to look at things from a stability standpoint and go, if you do want a big bench press, you probably need to be able to create a certain amount of stability. Yeah. A push-up is probably going to be a way that it's a pressing motion. It's the same movement. That's what I always think about as things in movement patterns. Yep. So like I think one overlooked exercise for a lot of people is like an inverted row on the rings. Yeah. Oh, it's a body weight exercise. Your body doesn't give a fuck. If there's tension there, there's a task there, there's load there. It will get bigger and stronger to a certain extent if you progressively overload it. Yep. And I think like a push-up can be an exercise like that as well too. And if you can't do that, then it does highlight the need for someone to probably, whether their goal is to be able to do it or not.
Yep.
But I think if you're training intelligently and training appropriately, most people that are decently fit probably should be able to get somewhere between 15 to 20 push-ups without practicing it. But also I do think it's one of those exercises I try to keep in rotation of just being able to bang some push-ups out as a good exercise. But they're probably
part of your warm-up. a finisher.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you can actually, fuck around with like the intention of the push up. There's so many things you can change on it. You could go change your grips. You could elevate, your feet, elevate the hands, whatever it might be. And I would probably put it in a similar category to like the dip as well too.
Yeah. Fuck. See, there we go. This is why I was stressing, because that needed to be in there. But anyway,
it's a bodyweight pressing exercise. Maybe we can put the dip in there as well with the push up.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, what do you think about it as well?
Yeah. No, the reason why I ask is just because like you said, there's a lot of purists out there that are like, if you can't do, a set of 10 pull-ups, then you shouldn't even be bothering with the lat pull down. Or if you can't do 10 push-ups, then don't even go near the bench press.
Yeah.
And like, I get where you're coming from, but also, how long do you think your client is going to continue working with you?
Yeah, good point.
For 12 weeks, you're like, oh, no, you're not there yet, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to give them trauma.
Yeah. I think that's like dogma, of like, it just has to be, you can't, it's the same thing with like a barbell back squat. If you can't do a perfect air squat with a broom handle, you can't do it. But my fucking back squat with a broom handle is shithouse.
Yeah.
But I can do it with some decent weight on there. Like, I think there's a certain amount of stability. And I think if you look at the certain amount of stability that load adds for some people, a certain amount of stability that, or the need for stability will be highlighted when there is load as well, which I think, because oftentimes people underestimate the load that is a push-up as well.
Yeah.
It can be a decently hard exercise for a lot of people. So I think you could waste a lot of time if you're like, you have to just do a push-up before you can do a bench press.
Yeah.
But you can start so much lighter on a bench press. It actually makes more sense to be able to do a bench
exactly.
press. Because if you look at the movement pattern and the ability to load it or not, a dumbbell bench press or even a machine press is a excellent exercise to build someone up to doing a push-up.
Yeah.
It's to be able to do 10 pull-ups before you can do a lat pull down is a funny one as well, too.
That's ambitious.
Yeah. Like 10 strict.
That's like a year's worth of work.
Yeah. And if you don't have a lat pull down to help you, it's going to be even longer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the alternative?
Yeah. Because I always look at things from a movement pattern standpoint of, your body doesn't, I touched on it there with the inverted row. Like, an inverted row will be my first rowing exercise, or one of the first rowing exercises I do. Not because I think it's superior because it is a bodyweight exercise, but I think it's easy to scale. Yeah. And the way that I teach it, I find it easier to get someone to move their scarps around their rib cage.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't look at it as this exercise is superior because it is bodyweight.
Yeah.
Because there's kind of like this allure to it. Plus, for some people, bodyweight is too heavy by a lot. If someone can only do 3 pull-ups, that's a 3 RM on a pull-up. That's heavy, yeah?
Yeah.
If you look at percentage-wise, it's 90% of your 1 rep max.
Yeah, exactly.
It's relative. Would you get someone to do, or a push-up, would you get someone to do a 3 RM on the bench right now? No, that's too heavy. Yeah. So is that body weight for that person at that given time? Yeah. And so to the point I was saying, like the row is the inverted row is one of the ones that I use initially because it's easy to scale. Our body perceives that, it perceives tension because there's a task that it has to complete. And I like to set landmarks on it and to standardize it. And then I get them to do that. And it's also an exercise that is more readily available oftentimes than a seated row. Which I think is an excellent exercise as well, because again, look at the movement pattern, you can load it. It's really, really good to scale. But I take into consideration, we have one seated row machine at Surrey.
Yes, right. This is something that, is definitely overlooked. Like, I think I've seen so many, like, bit of a side, so going on a bit of a tangent here, but like so many people come into the industry, like fresh trainers, like literally they only finished their Cert 3 and 4 2 weeks ago. They come onto the gym floor and the first thing they say is, so what should I be doing if I want to go online? I'm like, maybe just get some gym floor experience first. And for that reason, like if those sorts of things that you don't see, when people rocking up to the gym at peak time, and let's say they've got a seated row, on their program, and this really green trainer has superset it with a leg press, which is on the other side of the gym.
Yes.
These are the sorts of things that you're not gonna learn unless you have that experience.
No.
And yeah, like you said yourself, finding an alternative for that row variation, the seated row. I guarantee less than 5 people in the gym are going to be heading for the rings to do an inverted row at the time.
No, they'll sit there and wait for the seated row. Which is, it's like, again, like from a movement standpoint, it's an excellent exercise. I always look at exercises, like I said, with movement pattern, what's going to be most efficient use of time? Because I think that's a big thing that, again, to the point that you said there, like if that trainer that's just got their Cert 3 or Cert 4 and they're like, oh, I want to be on the gym floor, that's like them not be an online trainer. That's them. They don't have any ability to critically think. They don't have any ability to put things into context, which is fine because that's everybody, And
it's good to have a vision.
Yeah, for sure. But there's so many things, so many variables and factors that go into writing a program.
Yeah.
That we take into account. It doesn't mean that like we're, amazingly special because we think of these things, but they're just, every...
This is the best podcast in Surrey Hills. So.
yeah, fastest growing podcast in Surrey Hills. But they're things that they're considerations. Yeah. And once you have, to the point that you made earlier, having a good understanding of anatomy and, human movement, then you don't need that certain exercise to get, there's no best exercises. Yeah. Like the top 10 exercises is a fun thing, or what do you like to do? But they're all movement patterns, it's such an interesting one that people have with like, you can't do a bench press unless you can do the push-ups. And you see it so often, hey, you can't do pull-ups or you can't do a lat pull-down unless you can do pull-ups.
Yeah.
It makes so much more sense to go the other way.
Yeah, start with the lat pull-down.
Yeah. Because I think like a lot of... From like an S&C standpoint, a lot of what you do is like general prep, get people do general stuff to get them in a position where they can do the more specific things. Yep. And if you miss that period of general prep, which is probably going to be using things that are more general in nature to get to the specific things. So I'd look at that as with the pull-up, for instance, like it's a pretty specific goal, and if someone doesn't have anywhere near the amount of general strength to get up to being able to do that, you need to do a general prep phase. You probably need to be able to train a lat pull down, get close to your body weight to a certain extent for some reps. They probably need some ability to move the scap, so they're going to have some rows there. They might have some scap depressions, and also they're going to be doing bicep curls as well. That's kind of goes in that same line of like, you don't need bicep curls, you can do pull-ups or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Technically you don't, but they also help as well.
For sure. Yeah. I think the other thing is, right, like if we're trying to get, our clients, a lot of them, they're just starting out on their journeys. And, let's say we've got somebody that's trying to lose weight and they're carrying in excess of 20 to 30 kilos. And you're going to try and get them to drop down onto the floor and do a push-up. That's essentially the same as a 30-kilo bench press.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, you're not getting on that bench until you're able to push yourself up off the floor 10 times.
Yeah, and
Sally never came back to the gym.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's an interesting thing because we just apply a stimulus with an implement and a movement, and we do that to that movement pattern. So if we can do it, a push-up is a really good way to do it, but how many other variations of an exercise can you have? I think if it's like someone that's pretty capable, they should be able to do push-ups. Yeah. And I think they're a good exercise to keep in rotation, or be able to do that so you can get the most out of your training as well too. Because then if that bench is taken and that chest press machine's taken, and let's say you want a chest pump, bang out 30 push-ups, do that a couple of times, you're probably going to get a very good workout. If you're looking at it just from that stimulus standpoint, that will do the same thing,
Yeah.
And I think if people can understand that as well, like those principles of what we look at when we're training, movement pattern, the load, what muscles we're actually wanting to train, then we've got so many, and obviously the reps and sets, whatever you're doing, then you got so many more options of the things that you can do as well.
Yeah.
Like I was having the conversation yesterday, like I think a chest supported row on a bench is one of the better rowing exercises that you can do. Yeah. Because in most gyms you can go into, you can get some dumbbells and you can get an incline bench.
Yeah.
You can get a seated row as well too, but we have, you know, one seated row, but we have 8 benches downstairs.
Yeah.
You know.
So the chances of a bench being free over the seated row.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the benefits of working with a coach, so that, like, let's say, even if it's for, you know, a period of 12, 16 weeks, whatever, going through a few training phases so that you have an idea or you improve your awareness around what alternatives you can use if your favorite machine is taken or if you're not able to do your favorite exercise at the time. Like you said, let's say your favorite exercise is the seated row. Rather than, oh, fuck, I'm just going to have to sit here and wait until this person's done, when they're just sitting on their phone the whole time in between sets. You can go, I'm going to go and do a bench row. I'm going to go do my TRX rows instead.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, obviously, you're going to have to learn that from somebody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's what we specialize in. Yeah. We spend quite a lot of time in the gym, you know. Exercise selection, programming, like the principles is the thing. I think that's where, like, there's a lot of weight in that. Understanding those principles, understanding anatomy, programming, exercise selection.
Yeah.
So much more. And obviously we're always going to understand it a bit more than our clients because that's what we do all day, and have done for, you know, 7 to 10 years or whatever it might be. But having a bit more knowledge around that gives so many people so much more power to actually change the things.
Just giving them more tools to work with.
That's the thing. And then you can go and replicate that. Like one of the things I want to give my clients all the information that they need to get the results so they can go and replicate it by themselves as well. Like it's so they can, go and replicate it by themselves. There's always a need for a coach. You know, even high level athletes have a coach. But also, it's not always feasible for most people as well, too. You know, obviously, there's a financial aspect of it. There's a time aspect of it. And that's why the online is such a good thing as well, too. Like, if I can funnel a client into online to continue to set them up with good programming and hold them accountable after they've done that period of learning their exercise. Excellent. That's good. There's so many things to consider with programming as well, too. Which is, that's kind of the value of the coach. One last thing, mate, because you said you've got to get somewhere at 4:30ish. Where would you like to see the fitness industry go in like the next 5-10 years? Not necessarily you, but like I guess kind of the things that you do now. What would you like to see the change, at least for the people that you work with?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where do I want to see the fitness industry? I want to see a little bit more regulation. Maybe like how do you even define that? Like some form of like standardizing the entry requirements, because I just feel like people are just finding courses left, right, and center, and you've got, you know, some that are super knowledgeable in something, and that's not to say that, you know, people that have just done their Cert 3 and 4 can't reach that level as well, but I feel like the people often get complacent and you know, they're not necessarily taking it upon themselves to go and do that extracurricular kind of, you know, keeping up with the research and the literature and, you know, niching in a certain field. And so I feel like there needs to be some sort of regulation, whether it's like a governing body like Exercise and Sport Science Australia has ESSA, that's literally what that stands for, but we don't have anything of such in the fitness industry. So maybe something along those lines. And then, I don't know, like just less trends, something a little bit more rock solid. Yeah. What does that look like? I don't know. I mean, how can you, it's not like you can really enforce that. Yeah. No, you know, you shouldn't do Pilates this month. You should just stick to what you were doing before. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. What about you?
I would like to see, along the same lines, man, like, I value the hard work in what we do, you know, and you can, like, it all comes down to, look, I guess one of the things that I want to try to, I was having a conversation yesterday about like methods and things like that and how you see, you know, people go, this is my method and it's the best method or whatever it might be. But it all comes, you know, if someone's getting results, there's probably a key couple of things that they're doing. We've chatted about them today, you know, obviously, they understand nutrition and have that nutritional literacy and managing stress, managing lifestyle factors, and then managing training. And there's like a couple key things in there that most people, if they would execute on, they're going to get the results. And like, I like the thing with it is it just doesn't sell the same as like a trend.
Yeah.
Like, focus on these principles, you'll get really mad results. Yeah. I want wellness.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess it's just one of those things. I guess I just value people doing those things and replicating those things and having good coaches like yourself and, you know, the people that I try to associate myself with. Like, yeah, there's similar themes across what everybody does because what everybody does is also very similar.
Yeah.
We manipulate the food and the habits, whatever it might be, and then we put an intelligent training program in place. And I guess I'd like to see more education around those basics and principles.
Yeah.
Because those are the things that get people success.
Yeah.
Anybody's method.
Yeah.
That, you know, we've seen it, I guess there's less of a diet trend now, or less that I see.
Yeah, I think that's probably more so what I had in mind when I was saying what I was saying. Because at the end of the day, like, if somebody enjoys something, this is back to where we started. If somebody enjoys something, then you can't take that away from them.
Yeah.
So if it gets them moving, then awesome. So if somebody loves Pilates, they love yoga, they love getting in the stirrups and like doing like that sort of aerial kind of stuff that you've probably seen on social media, then awesome. That's better than sitting at home stuffing their face in front of the TV.
Yeah.
But I think it's with the misinformation where we need more regulation.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see as many trends with, okay, we're going keto this month and then next month it's, you know, purely egg diet.
Yeah.
It probably sounds just like keto anyway.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, we're screwing with people's health here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just because, you know, one influencer, you know, swears by it and it worked for them.
Yeah.
Who's also unqualified.
Yeah. And maybe on gear or something like that as well
exactly.
too. And that's a really, really good way to put it. Like, less misinformation, because again, there's a couple key things that most people do to get results, whether they're doing those things or not. You know, there was a phase with like the low carb diet. Why do people lose weight on the low carb diet? Predominantly because they probably lowered their calories.
Yeah.
So we understand that it's mostly the calories, obviously the water weight loss and things like that. Let's just educate people on that and how they can manage that.
Yeah.
And
rather than cutting out all carbs.
Yeah, and feeling like shit. Because I've definitely done it before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No carb?
I've done. I used to do no carb for a while, and back in the day when I had that bit of disordered eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a fun time.
Yeah, I can imagine. The brain fog must have been pretty real.
Yeah. And this was like fresh out of school, didn't know much, like fucking over nearly 13 or 14 years ago now, which is crazy.
Yeah, wow.
Crazy to think about. Maybe nearly 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
Because again, like, I kind of misinformation. There was information around there then, but it's just not what we see now. And I guess like that's a good thing about social media. You know, there's a lot of bad things about it, but there is a lot of people there's a lot of good things. There's a lot of good people that are actually spreading good information.
Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah,
you know.
So what do you think about you know, the fitness personalities out there? I'm not going to name anybody that are sort of spreading a little bit of fear throughout the industry because they're sort of targeting people and, you know, what they're saying and their opinions and then taking the piss out of it.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You don't like it?
I don't. Like, publicly shaming people for, because I don't think that's what the industry is about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't agree with the people that they, you know, with the misinformation.
Yeah. It depends what it is as well. I mean, if they're just genuinely trying to help people.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, we've all been wrong.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, you know.
Yeah.
And even if it's just something, and it's not the same, but it's something as simple as, like, we were talking about, you know, content off air. You listen to yourself enough, you go back to your old stuff, you're like, fuck, I sounded like that saying that. And I think if you went back far enough with it, most people, they're going to have that something.
It's going to be something that they don't necessarily resonate with anymore.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I don't like about it so much is kind of like the air of superiority about it as well too.
It's just narcissistic, really.
Yeah, and I guess it's like, one thing is it's probably a good idea to give people the benefit of the doubt and appreciate that even those people taking the piss out of people are still trying their best as well.
Yeah.
But I just don't like I don't vibe so much with like the ridicule of it. Because if we're in the industry, we are in the industry to help people and make people feel good. I don't necessarily vibe with it making other people feel bad.
Yeah, with an industry where people are so intimidated already to even get through the doors of a gym.
Yeah.
And the people that we're looking up to, they see are just essentially bullying people online.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, well, yeah.
It's an interesting
kind of
one.
Contradicting yourself because you're saying that you're all about helping people, but then on the other end of the scale, you're just ripping people to shreds.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one because my goal is to help people and educate people on the basics. And if I do disagree with something from someone, I'll try to give context around why and educate people on the things that actually are getting the results.
Yeah.
Because again, there's a lot of science behind it, but it all does boil down to a few key things. I guess, that's where I don't vibe with it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, more or less the same. As sometimes, it can be funny at first, but then when you really think about it, like I feel sorry for the people that they're targeting.
Yeah.
Because you could potentially be really screwing with that person's career.
Yeah.
And their base of clients. And people are susceptible to what they see on social media.
Yeah.
So let's say, Sarah, as an example, has 30 online clients or, 30 face-to-face clients. And then she sees this fitness personality slamming their trainer. Her clients see, this influencer slamming their trainer. And obviously, they're going to start having second thoughts.
Yeah.
You'd hope to think not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's just not classy.
No, that's the thing. It's the thing. And it's the classic, promote what you love, don't bash what you hate.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Because I think I see why people do it because it does get views and it gets the algorithm going, and it's, I'm sure you feel it as well too. Sometimes you constantly posting content and you're posting all the content that's really, really good. That's what we do. Yeah. And he's like, fuck, it's just not getting as much traction as I would like it to be.
But, it can be easy to get lost in that lost in the algorithm. And, are you chasing clout or are you trying to give people value?
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like a lot of, I've been there before as well. A lot of people get too caught up in trying to chase the views or the likes or the attention.
Yeah.
When we should be really sticking to the whole point of doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Which is trying to help people.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you maintain that level of integrity, in your ethos, then people will eventually pick up on that.
Yeah.
And if somebody is trying to do that and you're then ridiculing that, then that's a shit person.
Yeah. And that's the thing with it. Just to get views on it. Because I probably have in mind a couple of people that you are referring to. And I don't consume their content because of that. Not that it fucking matters to them because they're making money.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I like to see people help people. I like to see people do good and educate and empower people because that's what I want. Fitness for me it's obviously a massive part of my life. I've come from the point where, when I was told you I got down to 65 kilos, I did start at 92. And I was always the fat kid at school. Not the fat kid, but the bigger kid. And I was just never super confident.
Yeah.
And just seeing what I get so passionate about it because I know the difference that it can make in a person's life. And that's what I want to try to promote as well. And doing it right as well, after doing it for X amount of years, I just want to see people succeed as well. And not try and tear people down so much. It happens. I guess it inevitably happens, but if you're going to do it, I don't agree posting about it.
Yeah, no, we need to get rid of that mentality. It's just toxic.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's very schoolboy behavior.
Yeah. And I guess I just want to see people to value hard work as well too, because if you do it long enough and you focus on the right things and focus on good quality training, every single person is capable of making change that they never thought was possible. That's where what I want to be able to do for people is get people in shape that they thought was never possible.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that's where I come from. Of like being a little bit overweight as a kid to being like to where I'm at now, having the muscle mass that I do and being able to control the diet the way that I do and have the freedom that I do with my diet, and then being as lean as I am and being able to get where I want to go. That's cool. If I can help people do that, then that makes them more confident. They have a better quality of life, and that's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
So hopefully the huge audience that listens to this, mate, they get a little bit of that. And yeah, we might pull it up there so you can hit off. Mate, that's nearly 2 hours. How'd you find that?
Yeah, it was good. Are we off? Yeah. I'm going to run to the bathroom.
Yeah,